the future is, but it'll never be our past. You can distance in your world, you'll never ever change the past.
Hello, I am Fight Club Hubs, and welcome to another episode of GVN Live. We have a couple of fun topics we're going to be talking about today. One brought up by Mark, and one that is a continuation off of a discussion from last episode. That being the restrictions of free speech within the esports scene. The topic that Mark is going to be bringing up was kind of a fun one, because the more we explored it, the more we were just like, yes, that game. That's going to be, and that is going to be.
I don't understand. I don't understand how you were like, I don't know anything. I can't do anything with this, Jan. I don't know what your age is exactly, but I know you are in the general wheelhouse of our particular degree of oldness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, just so you know, this discussion is about sequels to franchises that either killed the franchise or forced a reboot, and that's going to be kind of fun to talk about. But to start things off, let's do the merry-go-round the room. Jan, what have you been up to, and what's going to be going on?
So started the stream over again last night for the first time in like months. Stable schedule at work, stable like ability to actually do my own thing and like have the ability to do stuff finally. So like I'm super stoked about that. I started my initial playthrough of Fire Emblem Three Houses last night. So that's
yay.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I saw that. I was gonna stop in, but I got distracted with other stuff.
It happens. I decided to start my first playthrough with the Blue Lion's house. So that is the first house that I chose to go through. Much as I enjoy Edelgard, there are other characters that I'd like to try to see about doing things first. So I decided on Blue Lions because it just made more sense. So I'm going with that. Which is, interesting so far. I've only had 2 battles and I'm 3 hours in, so it's like
a lot of story, huh?
Oh, good JRPG levels of stories with actual, turn-based tactical combat in it. This ought to be interesting. We'll see what happens. Yeah, we took about 30 minutes to actually deliberate which house I wanted to actually go through. Once we figured out sort of who you could romance, and we sort of figured out the ins and outs of who I decided I wanted to actually have on my team, that was how I was able to actually figure. I was like, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna go with this is the team we're gonna start with, and then we decided to go there. So but yeah, I have a Switch now, so that's a thing. So that's why I'm able to play it, which is nice. It's pretty good. I've been wanting to play it more than pretty much all my other systems right now, so ta-da, that's a thing. But it was good. It's so far so good. I'm enjoying it. I was going to start working. Actually, was originally planning on doing playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which yeah, I know, 2017, right? Okay, sure.
Good luck with that 100+ hour game.
Fire Emblem, yeah, same idea.
I mean, listen, I tried streaming Persona 4 multiple times, and it just kept not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. But yeah, so I've decided we settled on Fire Emblem for the majority, and then I've got a couple of other side games that I'm actually going to be working on. Mistover, Iceborne, and 14 starting next week. Because the Nier Raid comes out. I'm super excited about that. Like, you have no idea. It's been a while since they announced it originally back about a year and a half, 2 years ago when they announced the expansion, but it's finally here. It comes out next week, and I cannot wait. I am super excited for that.
Okay, awesome. So when's your next stream date?
Tomorrow.
Yay! So you're gonna be willingly missing AEW?
Look, I don't have regular television in the house, so it really doesn't matter to me. Oh, and okay. I don't have a way of being able to watch TNT, so it's like, whatever.
Fair. Yeah, and that one link I gave you didn't work because your internet didn't like it.
No, there's reasons I don't go to some of those sites. But the long and short of it is that as much as AEW is nice, I'm pretty much going to be committing to Monday, Wednesdays for my own personal streams. And then just obviously co-streaming with you guys on Tuesdays. So I've got 3 days a week. And that way I can kind of do 1 or 2 weeks of the Chosen game, in this case, Fire Emblem, and then bouncing back and forth between other things. Though I think next week I may break my don't double stream in the same night kind of rule, because that's when the patch 14 hits, and I'm really kind of itching to get into the content so that I can see the story for the near raid. So I may end up doing that on next week's Tuesday, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. We'll start with me next. So I started playing Astral Chain. I picked it up about a week or so ago, and I finally played it. It's fun. I like it. It's more than a stylish game, which is what we associate with Platinum games. Terms of story, yeah, I can definitely see where it's just like, par for the course from Platinum games, but the gameplay is definitely what stands out to me. I mean, sure, past Platinum games were all stylized, like just straight beat-em-ups. This one actually puts thought and effort into it, as well as really good reaction speed, which is what I appreciate that, they went the extra mile for. I'm looking forward to beating it within the next couple of weeks. I think they say it's like just under 20 hours to complete. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, I need to get back to beating at least 5 games a year, and so far I've only beaten 2.
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to actually, beat some of these games that I buy when I'm buying like 30 of them in a year. Womp womp. Yeah, I've been playing a little bit of Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I beat the main story last week. That was a pain in the ass, but it was actually very satisfying. I don't know what it was, but I mean, sure, the Xeno'jiiva was fun to fight, but I didn't really feel satisfied taking it out. The Elder Worm, that was frustrating as hell. Not as much fun, but somehow way more satisfying to beat. And I haven't gotten around to Rajang yet, so I'll definitely be tackling that DLC at some point. I'm not looking forward to it.
No one likes Rajang.
Hey,
doesn't matter what iteration you play against him, nobody likes Rajang.
Honestly, though, I am not looking for... as much as I dislike Rajang, the other monster in the game that they added that I'm actually more of a... I actually hate more than Rajang, that's Yin Garuga.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck that piece of fucking bird. I cannot. That thing is random as all hell. If you've played him in past Monster Hunter games, this thing just wow. He's more of a pain in the ass than Rajang, in my opinion.
I mean, once you hit Master Rank 100, you've got Brute Tigrex to worry about. So,
Brute Tigrex and the whatever
Gold and Silver.
No, the subspecies of Nergigante.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Destroyer Nergigante. Ruiner Nergigante.
Tigrex is a weird one for me because he used to be a major problem, and then one day he just wasn't.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, when he came out, what was it, 4? Was it 4 or the PSP games that he came out on, that he first showed up on?
Monster Hunter Freedom 2
okay, so
was the first time that he appeared.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember for a while, I was the only person in my friend group who could beat him because I played as a bow gunner, so I would just get up somewhere high that he couldn't access and just shoot him until he was dead.
Yeah,
and then one day, like, they had the ability, if you had a modded PSP, where you could put cheats into play.
Mm-hmm.
So I used the cheats to just practice for, like, not caring about if I took damage or whatever for, like, a week. And then I just learned how to properly play against Tigrex. And that was it.
Yeah, before we divulge into, like, Monster Hunter discussion, but if I recall, a lot of these monsters that have become very popular originated from the PSP games, and they were apparently, from what I understand, a hell of a lot harder on the PSP versions before they got transferred, before they ended up on like the Wii U with 3 Ultimate and on 4. And
limitations of the system, I think, were a big factor as to why a lot of those monsters were a pain in the ass on the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly just the system that they used for Freedom and Freedom Unite was clunky, because they were using an antiquated and updated version of the Monster Hunter 2 engine, which was, as we all know, not exactly the best version of the engine for Monster Hunter. But that
and the fucking claw hold that you needed to do to play on the PSP. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh yeah,
yes.
and the fact that there was no second analog stick for camera movement, that was a problem.
Yeah, that was yikes. It was very rough, but we made do with what we had.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, stream schedule wise, I have to get in the habit of doing my third night. I still haven't been able to figure out what it is. I think I said Thursdays, but I just never been able to commit to it. I'm still going steady on Mondays and Tuesdays. We got GVN live plays and the podcast with you two, and then Mondays is Monster Hunter Monday, and I hopped on GU for the first time in about a couple months with my buddy Reggie, who I haven't seen in a while. And I got to figure that out. Yeah, I keep getting these random messages from XSplit saying high CPU usage. I don't know if it's actually Windows that's constantly spiking or XSplit that's spiking. But this has been a problem for the past month. I mean, it's sitting at 80% right now. I don't know why, and it better drop down. Well, usually it does. And I have it on the lowest setting system. There we go. It just dropped down to like 30%. Weird.
Yeah, who knows?
Yep. Now, we're going to round this out before we go into our first discussion, which, Mark, you can introduce. So, Mark, what are you doing? What's going to be happening?
Right now, I'm not really doing a whole lot of anything. We've been streaming Prey because it's the 2017 game, I should say, because it's Halloween, and that was the game that everybody voted for. I've been playing Destiny 2 pretty regularly because it's free, and I'm like, hey, I haven't played this, and now I've lost myself to it, and my soul is owned by fucking
Thanks, Bunchy.
Yeah.
By the way, I
Bungie.
just want to confirm: is this what we have to play next Tuesday?
Probably. And it's free.
I know we can't really say no to free.
We can play it on the Xbox, the PS4, or the PC, but we're gonna also have to deal with whatever Jan wants to do. So I know you have all of the consoles, and I have all of the consoles. I don't know exactly what Jan has and wants to play it on.
I have Destiny on PC.
So PC it is. Okay. But yeah, I've been playing that. I am looking at picking up Moons of Madness in the next day or two.
Oh, that's Cthulhu Moon that we saw earlier in E3, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been stoked about this one. I'm glad it's finally coming out. I can't wait to see you get spooked by it. It's Cthulhu on the moon.
It's based in the universe that the Secret World is based in, which I haven't played the Secret World, but I've seen the games that are released around it, and the games always have a degree of promise, but don't necessarily always execute on them. So I'm interested to see how Moons of Madness does this particular thing. I'm also waiting to see some reviews on the Outer World before I pick that up because it looks rad as shit, but it is fucking Obsidian, and as much as I like Obsidian, their games can be jank when they first launch, so wait a little bit, see what it does. Beyond that, we have a board game night stream coming on Saturday, the 26th. Just going to be board games. I know, a couple of people have suggested, doing something horror themed, and I have to see, what I have available. I may do something Resident Evil 2 or something like that, but one of our regulars, Nate, will not be available, so I don't know if I want to pick up a game where we already have progress in it versus starting something new or whatever, so we'll figure it out when the time comes.
Could always just Arkham.
What?
You could always just Arkham.
Arkham?
Yeah. Arkham Horror.
Oh, I don't have Arkham Horror.
Oh, fair enough.
I participated in a radio show recording over the weekend with my friends over at the Pot Askew podcast. Most of your games seem horror themed, to be honest. Aaron is not wrong. He is not wrong.
Not wrong.
I participated in a radio show recording with my friends at the Pot Askew podcast over the weekend, over on Sunday specifically. That is supposed to be coming out, I believe, on Halloween, on the 31st of October. It is an original script written by one of the folks affiliated with this gentleman named Henry. It was quite nice. Based around Batman.
Batman, you say?
Batman. So that's all I'm going to say about it for now.
Seems
When they start releasing stuff, I will be retweeting it. But Yeah, so I mean, it was a lot of fun recording with everybody. I think it turned out reasonably well, and I'm going to be retweeting it over on my Twitter account. You can also follow Pod Askew either on Twitter or on your favorite podcasting app if you want to catch it when it comes out. And there you go.
Awesome. All right, so moving on to the first topic of the day. Mark, your idea? Take it away.
Oh, are we starting with mine? Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Well-
they both technically are yours, I guess, tonight.
Well, I didn't know if we were starting with the depressing thing, like the depressing and frustrating thing, or the fun thing.
We'll start with the fun thing because why not end it on a depressing note?
Oh, good. That's fine.
Yeah, that's the way that it should go.
Always.
Hey, we've had a lot of fun. Now it's time for us to remind everybody about how life is futile. Fuck off. My friend Aaron says, I hope Mark plays a disillusioned Robin. I do not, in fact. I'm not going to say what I do, but there are Robins, and I am not them. Anyway, so we were kind of having a discussion about a topic that you had brought up, and which we're not going to talk about now, just because I felt that there was probably some deep diving we needed to do to assemble it in a way that it was...
It required some deep diving. We didn't have enough time today for us to do it because the topic actually just came to me this morning.
Right. So I came up with an idea that I felt like didn't require any sort of deep diving. It didn't require any investment. It didn't require any thought processes. It was just, we can just go with this and run, and it doesn't require us to think about it very much. And that is the idea of sequels that killed a franchise. Now, what I'm really looking for here is the idea of previous games in the franchise were really good, or at the very least enjoyable, and then a sequel comes out that is so bad it either kills the franchise off or causes a hard reboot. This would also be a case where, if the franchise has been dead for a while, if they do a reboot sort of sequel where they bring the game out and the reboot sequel sucks and ends up re-killing the franchise, that sort of thing would also apply. Basically, it's whether it's a revival sequel, a reboot sequel, a proper sequel, whatever, it's just so bad or so poorly received, it just fucks the franchise back to the Stone Age.
Now, I also asked a question. I just wanted to make sure if it's still applicable. What about franchises? A game in a franchise that actually was not well received and put a franchise on dormant for, let's say, 15 plus years.
I mean, yeah,
That's
that's a sequel in the game,
but does not come back with a reboot, but with another direct sequel.
I mean, that's fine. It put it on the shelf for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Pokemon clone dinosaurs and bad puns.
Woohoo!
Are we
predicting the future because
of
Fallout
76? No, they have committed. They have actively committed to keeping that game alive beyond all reasonable sanity, and I have to admire it. They've indicated they're going to invest whatever amount of money they got to invest in that fucking thing.
Oh, we're gonna bring out NPCs next year, though. Sorry.
Well, human NPCs, regular NPCs are coming out next month.
I mean, okay.
I mean, they should have been out last year when the game launched, but that's
There's
neither
a lot
here
of
nor
stuff
there.
that they should have had that when it launched, but Bethesda. We want you to use your imagination.
Well, let's be honest. People have used their imagination. So many death trap mazes.
And lots of people nuking West Virginia. But hey, that's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand at the very least why they chose to not include humans in there. I understand their rationale for it. I just think it was fucking dumb.
Nah.
But who do you want to go first, Mark, with the game?
Oh, I don't care. You can go first. That's fine.
Okay. I feel like they're going to be a reoccurring company being brought up, but let's say Golden Axe Riders.
For Sega, yeah.
Yeah, for
I mean,
Sega.
Sega's Sega. There's a lot of Sega that probably should have not been sequels that killed series.
Now, here's the thing with the franchise. The Golden Axe franchise was a series of beat 'em up games. There were 4 beat 'em ups in the series, 3 released directly on console, 2 in the arcade, and then on the Sega Saturn there was a standalone fighting game, which wasn't that bad. It was a bit weird, but it was actually a decent, solid fighting game, not something you would probably play competitively. And that was the last game released in the franchise for about 10 years. I think that game came out in 96. I think
Well,
it
that
came
sounds
out
about the time. That also sounds about like the 95, 96 time frame was around like when everybody was releasing fighting games,
Yeah, pretty much.
which is pretty much where like the entire concept of the Kusoge genre comes from. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's about right.
Now, let's skip ahead about maybe to 2008. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 are now going full steam ahead at this point after being on the market for a few years. And Sega decides, you know what? Let's bring back some of our franchises. One of them being Golden Axe Riders, which was a game where you play the descendant of the female Amazon character from the first 2 games,
Tyrus Flare, yes.
Tyrus Flare, and they bring back the idea of riding beasts for combat purposes. Not a bad idea, but considering that was a mechanic in the first 3 games, riding beasts to kill monsters. The problem is they released a glitchy, badly designed, bug-filled mess of a game that had incredibly irresponsive controls, and it was review bombed like crazy by everybody on the planet. I don't
Except
know
for
how.
Dave Halverson, who liked it for some shit awful reason.
This if memes were would you say memes existed in 2008? I don't remember.
Memes have existed throughout human history, but memes as we understand them in the modern culture were not really a thing.
Yeah, they weren't a thing. So if memes were a thing, I think this game would probably be would have been the unnamed goose game of its day and age.
Well, yeah, but not desirably.
Not in the
Not
good
desirably,
way.
no,
No,
not in a good way. More like Pepe the Frog, kind of bad.
Ugh.
Since then, afterwards, there has been no mention.
I was gonna say I don't think Tyrus Flare was a racist.
Oh,
We don't want to dig into the franchise or into the character's profile, but the thing is the game was so bad that Sega.
Look, all I'm saying is she hung out with Gilius Thunderhead. Okay.
fair.
But this game, afterwards, there has been no mention of Golden Axe anything outside of re-releases of the first 3 games, with Sega compilations, and it also seems to be omitted from numerous tweets and questionnaires that Sega has put out when looking back at reviving franchises, of which we are getting new franchises like the Sakura War series, and a new Space Channel 5. All kinds of weird stuff is coming out of the woodworks for Sega because they're looking at their back catalog now, but Golden Axe is not getting a look at right now. So I would say that game effectively killed the franchise right there. What do you guys think?
I think beat 'em ups in general have a really weird niche place in the market, and they have since like early 2000s. And I think that like trying to bring back a franchise like that without some sort of like super serious like baseline to actually do it. Like, for instance, as of right now, there are really only 1 or 2 beat 'em up games that are on literally everyone's radar. One of which is River City Girls, which is basically a rebranding, I guess, of the River City Ransom franchise, because it's basically the girlfriends of the 2 original main characters from the River City games who are now trying to get their boyfriends out of, somebody who kidnapped them. I think it's like the cops or something like that, but they like explain it in the game. But the baseline is beat 'em ups themselves have to be rebranded in such a way that like the characters themselves can actually be likable. And if you put something like what they did with Riders and they try to rebrand and reprocess a game that's as old as sin like Golden Axe, it's really tough because unless you're like super just going to be chintzy with the 80s nostalgia in a game like that, it's going to be really difficult for people to want to try to think about Golden Axe. If you're nostalgic and you like it, just go play Golden Axe, go play 2, go play Knights of the Round, go play Capcom Beat 'em Up Bundle. Like, there's a reason why people play the games that they play, and the beat 'em ups that exist in the forms that they do exist in a way that, like, you're not going to get them. Like Project says in the chat, like Aaron says, it's like they show up in mobile games, they show up in as like cameos, but like that's about as best you're going to get for a lot of those characters or a lot of those franchises, is because beat 'em ups just aren't the same. It's the concept of the beat 'em up was basically you throw quarters at a machine until you beat the game, because that was what you did. That was how those games made money, and that was how they gained popularity. And when they came home, the idea of just, oh, this is so much easier now that my quarters aren't at stake. It's like the genre kind of just, what are you gonna do? I like the Golden Axe franchise. I like beat 'em ups in general. They're one of my favorite genres. It's just I feel like there's a difficulty there for people to think about maybe we get a new Golden Axe. I would rather see maybe a Golden Axe character in the new Virtua Fighter, but
Yeah, I mean, the statement that Aaron makes is the characters show up in the mobile games, which, sure, but so does Alex Kidd. And we're not fucking talking about reviving Alex Kidd, like, to the point where Alex Kidd as a character is like a goddamn joke in Sega's own in-house games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's straight up a joke in fucking Sega Gaga, for Christ's sake. And I mean, to be fair, you could put Alex Kidd on this list because all of Alex Kidd's sequels are bad fucking sequels.
We watched stream them.
Yeah, like, I don't think that Alex Kidd was killed off because his sequels were bad. I just think Alex Kidd was killed off because they discovered Sonic and they were like, sorry, buddy, boot. And that was just the fucking end of it.
There you go.
The only good Alex Kidd game was the first Alex Kidd game, but they kept on fucking trying and they kept making sequels that were each was worse than the last.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was a case of any one sequel being bad enough that they gave up, so much as they just gave up because Sonic came along. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't put him on this list. Like, all of his sequels suck. All of his sequels are fucking terrible.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of column A, column B there too, because like there's a lot of characters that were like that were supposed to be like franchise mascots that had the exact same thing happen to them. Like, I don't know, whatever happened to the TurboGrafx 16? They had this entire subset of like games that probably could have been good, and they're like, we made Bonk. Nobody remembers Bonk.
Well, he was replaced by Airzonk, who was supposed to be the edgy, awesome futuristic version of him, and he only got a single game.
I just think the TurboGrafx 16 was just a poorly marketed system in the first place, but that's just my thoughts.
Well, it was
Nicolas Cage meme.jpg.
just
you don't say.
You don't say. Yeah, it was just a bad system, but there's not the bees.
I was waiting for that.
I think that in the same concept of like, just for my own personal taste, like I've got a couple of them that I can think of. You don't say. Fucking Senko, thanks. That's fine.
I made that. That's mine.
That's good. I like that. That's a good one. Chrono Cross, I feel like basically killed the concept of what they were trying to do with the original Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is a much beloved RPG. Everybody thinks of it as one of the best RPGs of all time.
But it's also not the first But it's also not the first sequel to Chrono Trigger.
It's the game that killed the series because the only thing they do is just keep remastering Chrono Trigger. They only made Chrono Cross once. You don't see them rebranding that one or remaking that one. Yeah,
it's weird. It's very weird to me because there are people who think that Chrono Cross is like a modern masterpiece, but as time has gone on, like I've seen more and more people who are like, "Fuck that game."
Oh, it's so
like
weird.
I don't know what the general consensus is about
Currently,
Chrono Cross.
I think the current consensus of it is that hey, it had a great soundtrack. That's it.
I mean, yeah, I won't say no to that. The Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross soundtracks were fucking fantastic, but the game itself was just fucking weird.
Yeah,
The
I
elemental system
hated
was,
Chrono Cross when it came out. I still hate it now. The mechanics were strange. The characters were generally uninteresting, and I just really hated how they went out of their way to just stomp the fucking shit out of the cast from the previous game. Like, it was just such a weird 90s decision to make.
oh yeah,
Like,
it was
it very
so
much
weird.
felt like they saw Image Comics and they were like, us too, we can do that too. And no, you don't need to do
No.
that.
Square, stop.
My fucking Chrono Trigger doesn't need to be fucking miserable and filled with angst. I don't need this shit.
Oh god. So if we're gonna like stick to RPGs from weird companies that Square has a hand in, Valkyrie Profile 2, Slameria.
Oh yeah,
Not-
that completely fucking murdered Valkyrie Profile.
I mean, I didn't think the game was that bad, but I can understand
It
it's
was
I did.
not meeting
I did.
people's
awful.
expectations.
The combat system in that game alone made me want to just burn the fucking disc. It was bad. There's a reason why Indivisible has done fantastically since it's come out. Purely because of the idea of going back to the original combat style of Valkyrie Profile. Like, Lab Zero even stated in a lot of their media like packets and stuff like that when they actually came out with that stuff was, this is basically our spiritual sort of like play at the original Valkyrie Profile. Like, the combat is very similar to it. A lot of how the game plays is very similar to the original Valkyrie Profile, which a lot of people loved. Those who may not know about Valkyrie Profile, if you know me, you know it's like my favorite game, hands down, all time. Don't care. I love the absolute fuck out of that game, simply just because of how the gameplay and everything sort of like really played to just a lot of the aesthetic that I like, Norse mythology and all that crazy stuff. But the baseline is that Valkyrie Profile, the baseline, has seen multiple remakes. They remade it for the PSP, Valkyrie Profile Lenneth, and they have a mobile version, Valkyrie Profile Autonoma, which is actually really strong, and it's very reminiscent of the original gameplay, and is, I think, what a lot of people would have preferred in terms of the gameplay mechanics and how they sort of updated the older Valkyrie Profile 1 engine specifically for the mobile game, but how they would have assumed they wanted Valkyrie Profile 2 to play, which a lot of people thought was a better way of doing it. And I think that when Square got their hands on the Enix profiles of games and they decided to sort of spin it off in sort of a weird way, because, you know, PS2 and Final Fantasy X was a thing. They tried to sort of Final Fantasy up the game, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all, and it easily is the reason why the rest of the Valkyrie Profile franchise that should have happened, because there are 3 sisters in the game, is a big reason why we never got a Hurist version of the Valkyrie Profile series that we originally were supposed to be getting. So yeah, I strongly think that that's another franchise that just got kind of dunked, that probably shouldn't have, that a lot of people loved, but it's like, what are you gonna do?
I want to keep on with the theme of RPGs. Dragon Quarter.
Breath of Fire?
Breath of Fire
No.
5. Yeah, Dragon
Oh
Quarter.
yeah,
On the
yeah.
PS2.
Breath of Fire
So-
came out with a
so
dumb mobile
weird.
game.
That
But
was
was
so
bad.
weird.
but there was a Breath of Fire 6, but it was Japan only for mobile phones. And apparently the service for that game got discontinued in 2017, so I don't think it exactly counts. But Breath of Fire 5, Dragon Quarter, I remember people were excited for this because as much as the 3 and 4 were beautiful looking games, being, kind of like hand-drawn and all that stuff with their combat, people were really waiting for it to be in 3D, and they thought they were going to get that on the PS2.
They got about a quarter of a game.
They did. They got a
Not a fan.
steaming pile.
I was really upset when I got it. I pre-ordered it. I picked it up. I took it home, played it for 2 hours, and I returned it. That's how upset I was with that game. Because I love the Breath of Fire series. I think it's fantastic.
I own all 4 games. I even bought 1 and
Yeah.
2 re-released on the Game Boy Advance.
So,
What?
but yeah, it's just it. Breath of Fire is a weird sort of like. I have a love-hate relationship with Breath of Fire. Like I like 4 and 2. I love the fuck out of 3. And 1 and me sort of have this weird love-hate relationship. I actually, because it's on Switch, you can actually get it with the Super Nintendo Online. So I'm like, I'll give it another go. And then I'm like, oh, I remember why I like this game, but fucking hate it, because it's so fucking difficult early on that,
It's
like, if you
difficult,
blow your
and
money in the wrong place too early, you're fucked, because you don't have enough armor to survive the first, like, area of fucking bad guys that you have to fight when you get to the second, like, castle area. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck.
And then
Oh
there's
my
a couple
God.
times in the game where if you're not paying attention, you won't know where to go next in the game. Or it doesn't tell you. You just have to make assumptions, and that will leave you lost, wandering around for like a few hours. And that'll just frustrate you and make you want to put it down.
It's got the same kind of concept of what they did with the original pair of Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2. Like, they have the same sort of play line, like, if you aren't paying attention, you have no idea where the fuck to go.
Yeah, but at
You
the
just
same time,
wander.
Final Fantasy 1 at least gave you an idea of where to go next. Like, they didn't tell you through in-game dialogue. They gave it to you in terms of gameplay setup. Like, okay, so cross the bridge, wander off in this direction, end up in the town, fight the pirates. Oh, we got a ship. Explore the ocean, find out there's only one bay. And explore the town, read dialogue. Okay, let's explore the south. I mean, it was pretty much giving you, like, subtle hints the whole way.
Yeah, the original Fire really didn't do that very often, which is like I said, I enjoy it for what it is, but it's like, yikes.
Yeah.
Trying to
Your
think what
turn,
else.
Mark.
Well, let's keep it going with RPGs. Oh, what the fuck
Okay.
is the name of the goddamn game? I'm trying to remember the actual full name of it.
Describe
What
it.
is it?
Lunar Dragon Song.
Don't remind me.
Oh right, the handheld Lunar.
Lunar for DS, yeah.
Yes.
So, for those who don't
Fuck.
remember Lunar is a franchise that has been kicking around for decades at this point. Came
Thanks
out
for things,
originally, it came out originally on the Sega CD. There was Lunar Eternal Star, Lunar Silver Star,
Sorry.
and Lunar Eternal Blue.
Yeah.
And then on the PlayStation, there was a Silver Star Story Complete and Eternal Blue Complete, which were updated versions of the Sega CD games.
And then there was a Game Boy Advance remake.
Of the first game
Of the first
specifically,
game.
which was really good. And then there was a PSP remake of the first game, which was also really good. And, like, these are all remakes of the very first game, but they're all done in a way that is unique and interesting. Like, you're not just playing the exact same game over and over again. The major story beat, the one everybody remembers, is there. Obviously, because why would you fucking leave that out? It's the most memorable part of the goddamn franchise. But there are things that are very different from game to game. Like, I haven't played the original game in forever, and I didn't play Eternal Blue on the CD. But I distinctly remember in the the
DS.
PlayStation version of the game,
Oh.
you would, like, go through the whole thing, and then they would be like, well, we have to take Luna to wherever the fuck, and it would just be decided that they had to take Luna there. Whereas in the Game Boy Advance version, I think his name is Lance, shows up, like, right at the very beginning, and it's like, Luna's awesome. I want to bring her with me to fucking learn magic. It's like, it's a completely different way of...
It's like a weird retelling each time.
Yeah, they
'cause, like,
retell it, yeah.
in the Sega CD version, Luna doesn't travel with Alex to the next town. where they in the PS version she comes with them, and in fact was a key selling point of the PlayStation version, as she actually has a song that she sings as the cutscene between leaving their hometown and going to the next port occurs. So like that was a huge selling point for the PlayStation version.
Yeah,
and then the Game Boy version, he picks her up and takes her with her, and that's how he ends up converting her to become the goddess under Galleon. And then like the PSP version had a slightly different story. It was crazy.
I'm gonna take a fucking moment with you, Aaron, when we're done with this. I'm gonna take a fucking moment with that. Like, I know it's a non sequitur, and I'm sorry, but Aaron fucking brought it up, and I need to just take a moment. But yeah, as Jan is saying, like there was significant and notable variances between the games, but all of the remakes of the first game were really good, and they just did not make a sequel. They just kept re-releasing the first game and occasionally the second game. So finally, in like 2005, somebody decides, well, we have fucking Lunar. We haven't done anything with it really, but we should probably like try and do something proper to redo it. The developers of the game aren't Game Arts.
Game Arts, yeah.
Because Game Arts is kind of has divested themselves from Lunar as a franchise.
I thought it was Kodokawa that handled the Lunar franchise, and Game Arts just worked as an affiliate.
No, so Game Arts owned the franchise, but Kodokawa owned the characters.
Oh, okay.
But so the developers of the game is a company apparently called Japan Art Media Games. Which, I mean, they've made stuff that people like. Most notably, they are directly associated, at least in part, with the development of Silver Star Story Complete, and they are associated almost exclusively with the development of Lunar Legend, the Game Boy Advance version of Lunar 1, which, as I've said, I thought was rad as shit. So they're like, well, okay, go and make a Lunar for the DS, and
oh God!
I don't know how. I don't know how. Like
before you go into this, I'm going to play devil's advocate for one minor thing. I thought the story was fine, not as great on a grand scale of the first two games at all, but it was a good story that added to the mythos and lore rather well because it was a prequel. The thing that made this game bite was the gameplay mechanics, the one where you had to choose whether or not you were gaining money or you're gaining EXP, and then there was the fact that the combat was practically auto targeting. You had no control over who you could attack, and also on top of that, you had this really crappy mechanic where your armor or weapons can break. So if you're in the middle of combat in an area with high level monsters, your weapons break.
I don't remember anything about this game. And I owned it. That's the worst part. I was so excited.
I still own it. It's downstairs with my other 20 plus Lunar games. Oh, by the way, speaking of which,
I don't even remember if I fucking have that. I played it. I don't remember if I fucking have it.
Yeah, exactly. But, I know I played it, but I remember nothing about this game being that bad. Like, I knew it happened, and I was excited for it, and I bought it. But then it was like, I don't remember. I completely blocked it from memory.
It was bad enough to the point where you just remember it. That's pretty much all it is. You just remember that this game exists. I think the game would have been decent if they fixed the combat mechanic. I mean that right there. If they made it so that I can just select who I want to attack, allow me to apply some kind of goddamn strategy in combat, the game would be perfectly fine. No. Why the hell is my main character constantly attacking enemies that are on the upper screen that are flying and constantly missing? That does not work!
No, I do not own that game at present. I will have to reacquire that. I did play it, don't presently own it. I do, however, currently still own the 3DS Langrisser game that was also god-awful. But that game does not appear on this list because they're fucking re-releasing the Langrisser games on the Switch, like, the beginning of next year. So
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
You did too.
Yes, Langrisser 1 and 2. Lancaster 1 and 2
amazing.
are coming
So-
out from Nippon Ichi.
Yes. Okay, I'm excited now. That makes me happy. I'm actually glad I have a Switch again. Yeah, buddy.
Well,
I don't
it's
know-
also
I
coming
don't
out on
remember if it's
PS4, but
Oh, is
I
it
mean-
PS4? I know it's on Switch and on Steam. I didn't know if it was on PS4 as well.
yeah,
I mean, fair. I
right.
think
They
they're
just
doing a
the
full
other day
console
they
release.
just had a
That's cool.
contest on Twitter for choosing the reverse cover art.
But yeah, there you go.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'll have to take a look
And
at
it's both games in one package.
Oh, cool. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with Lancaster 2, just because I don't know if it's going to be Lancaster 2, the SNES version, where there's like 80 gajillion fucking endings that you can get, or if it's just like the original version, which is just an ending. I don't
We'll
care
see.
which one they do. It's fine either way. I'm
yeah, for sure.
curious. But
Oh, yeah, no, totally.
But by the
yeah,
way, welcome to GVN Live. We are in the middle of a discussion about games, sequels that killed their franchise or forced a hard reboot. So Mark is about to mention another game, I believe.
I have one that's like just a beef for me, which is Zillion 2, the Triformation. I know nobody played it. I'm not going to spend a
fuck is
whole lot of
that?
time on it.
That's out of nowhere. I don't know that game.
Okay.
So this is just for me. This is just for me, okay?
Mhm.
I was a Sega kid growing up. I owned the Master System. Zillion as a franchise is one of Sega's like smaller scale franchises. It's based around this organization that has this like laser gun called the Zillion gun that looks like a fucking Sega light gun. Because of course, fighting against like evil dudes. The first game was kind of sort of Sega's answer to Metroid.
Gotcha. Okay.
It still holds up reasonably well. I still really enjoy the original Zillion. Zillion 2 the Triformation was this goofy ass side scroller where 50% of it was you were racing around on this fucking motorcycle that could turn into like a Gundam battle suit. And the other 50% of the time was just like straight shitty platforming. It was just the worst thing. Like, it was just so bland and boring. It was so poorly conceived and executed. I don't know why the fuck they made it that way. And
I'm looking
like
at
the
this, yeah, this is
franchise
pretty
just like
familiar.
super fucking died like right afterward.
Interesting fun fact. Apparently, there's an anime for it.
Yes, the anime is also not very good. I have
It's-
watched it. It is not great.
It's Tatsunoko. How could it be bad?
Just the writing is not very good. Aesthetically, it's very nice. The writing is not
fair.
very good.
Yeah, we're talking about early '90s era Tatsunoko though, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I also just want to take a moment. Aaron mentioned Persona 5 because how in the hell do they top that? I don't know if this is just me. I know it isn't because I've actually had this conversation with several other people, but that's how you introduce a controversial statement like, I don't know if it's just me. But we're just going to go with it. Like,
Fair.
we're just going to go with it. I know
Yeah.
it's not just me, but I don't know if it's just me. But the further away I get from Persona 5, the more I'm like, God, I wish I hadn't fucking played that thing.
You're not alone. I'm eventually going to actually go through and finish playing it at some point, but
I'm going to pick
I
it up
feel
at
like-
some point and play it.
I feel like the game plays well, and I enjoyed my time with it that I had. I never really got past Kamoshida's Palace because I had a lot of weird game-breaking bugs that I didn't know how I got to actually happen, and so gave up. I'll probably go back and finish it eventually. It's just
Why
I got
start
really
over?
demoralized.
For
I
me-
got really
for me
demoralized,
personally-
so.
For me personally, it was... I played through the game and I beat it.
Mhm.
I put it away for like a month or two. I tried to stream it and I got like a quarter of the way into it. And then like I keep thinking back to it and I'm just like, I don't want to fucking play this game again. Like they're coming out with a new version of it.
Well,
Here's
yeah.
the thing. The characters are great, the aesthetics are great. The game looks gorgeous. The character writing is fine. I find myself as time goes on sort of feeling like I like the characters from Persona 4 better personally, but the characters from 5 are fine. The game starts amazingly with the Kamoshida Palace and everything associated with it. The last like 4 dungeons are fucking ass. And I never want to fucking play them again. Like this is a thing that I just came to the conclusion of originally when I was playing Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Aaron asks, is it just the mouse puns? Oh, no. No, it is the entire act of playing as the fucking mice. I need you to understand. Tokyo Mirage Sessions, I hated the fucking dungeons in that. And at the time that I was playing it, anybody who watched me stream it was like, would remember, probably. They probably wouldn't. It was like 2.5 years ago, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Me saying, like, this does not bode well for Persona 5 because, like, the dungeons are not well designed and I do not enjoy playing through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the same problem with Persona 5. I do not like the dungeons. They go on too long. The puzzles that they use are annoying. And they're just frustrating in how they are designed. I do not like them. I do not ever want to play through them again. And, like, I've talked to several people at this point who are like, I don't want to play through, like, the last 3 or 4 dungeons. And, wow, this it isn't just me. Holy fucking shit. See, I liked the Persona 5 dungeons. I mean, that's fine. Like, you know, everybody's going to have their own different opinions. I'm not saying, you know, that my opinion is the correct opinion to have or whatever. It's just, for me personally, I don't fucking like the goddamn dungeons. The last, like, 4 dungeons, I do not want to play through them ever again. I keep thinking about the remake that they're doing, and Persona 4 The Golden, I loved the game enough that I went and I picked up the Golden, and I've beaten the original game like 3 times. I've beaten the Golden like 4 times. Persona 5, I beat it once. I got about a third of the way into it the second time, and I don't want to buy the remake,
Right.
the new one. I just don't want to buy it because I'm looking at the idea of having to play through, like, specifically the second to last dungeon. With, as Aaron noted, like the mouse section, just every part of that is just I do not want to play that fucking dungeon.
But why though?
It's just long. It's boring. It's terrible. There's a lot of sequences where you have to transform into a thing and do stealth sections to avoid fucking monsters on the altogether as mice, and it's just.
However, Mark, the most important question is, did it kill the franchise?
No, obviously.
No, obviously not.
Okay.
But yeah, do we want to keep going with this? Because like we're like an hour in already at this point.
So
the only other game that I could, and before we segue, I think there's only one game that I really feel like is sort of at that same point where I think the originals were great, and then they decided to make a game, was the Banjo-Kazooie franchise.
I actually mentioned that earlier to Mark.
Like, it's the truth. Like, the Banjo-Kazooie franchise was great for the first 2, and then they made Nuts and Bolts, and the whole franchise just ate a dick. So it's like, okay.
I mean, you could say that just
Smash, right?
I mean, you could say the same thing about a bunch of franchises that are owned by Rare. They made a couple games, that was it. I mean, where's Perfect Dark 3?
I mean, look, and as much as I don't want to dunk on Sega, I'm like...
Yeah, Sega was also that company in the mid to late 90s that took a lot of chances and tried to see what stuck. And they got more shit that failed than that actually stuck. I mean, remember Altered Beast 2 on the PS2?
No, because it didn't come into the US.
Yeah, it stayed in Europe.
It was that fucking bad. Yeah. I imported that game because I heard it was terrible. I was not prepared.
Oh god!
The original
talking, like, Quiet Man bad, or just like
it's on another
level. On a scale of 1 to Quiet Man, how bad is it?
Quiet Man is not the worst game I've ever played. Leisure Suit Larry Box Office Bust is probably the worst game I've ever played.
I mean,
Quiet Man would be like if we had to like scale it, like the 3 worst games I've ever played are perpetually in a cycle of violence against one another to decide which one is the worst, which is Leisure Suit Larry Box Office Bust, Universal Studios Theme Park Adventures, and ALF for the Sega Master System. I want to be clear there.
Sure.
I would say those are all like the bottom 1. 2 is like Agony, the game that came out on PC. Yeah. 3 is The Quiet Man.
Okay.
Altered Beast, somewhere between Agony and The Quiet Man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
like,
pretty
here's the
awful.
Thing. This is just where I need to start, and you can just go Google it for yourself if you want to know more. The original Altered Beast is a kind of corny side-scrolling beat-em-up. It was fine at the time that it came out, but its major appeal was the visual aesthetic. The gameplay was not very great. It's never particularly held up for me as an experience. Sega mostly just includes it into their compilations as a way of saying, "Look what we did! Look what we did!" But like,
you remember this game, right?
Yeah, it's a game that you remember if you played it on the Genesis. Yeah, like, and for that line, but like otherwise, you don't fucking care.
Power up.
The sequel
Golden
is
Ghost
like
was a
is
thing
a
that was
fucking
beta at the time. So
is a fucking broken ass third person shooter.
What? Hold on.
All right.
What?
I mean, in the interest of
That
moving the
just
show
blew
along,
my
though,
mind.
Jan, you're gonna have to go look up gameplay footage
Wow,
of this.
I am definitely gonna after this. That is awful sounding. Holy shit.
All right.
Yeah, it's also notable that there's a GBA game that I have not played that actually like it's also a shitty looking side-scrolling beat 'em up that looks neat. I want you to know I'm talking about the PS2 version specifically. Like, just
Okay.
make sure you're looking for that one. It's bad.
Oof.
All right. So segue.
Speaking of bad.
Yeah, bad things. China. Okay.
Hey,
So
hey.
Wow.
I just want to be clear. China is fine. It's the people who are running China who suck. I don't want this to be a thing of fuck the Chinese, because a lot of people are leaning in that direction. And I just want it to be clear. The Chinese people, China as a country, fine. The government sucks.
all right. I should have clarified then, because that's what
No, it's fine. I know you don't mean it that way. I just wanted to be clear there, just because a lot of people I don't want to be associated with in any form or fashion ever are like blaming it as China, and I just wanted to be clear, we're not those fucking assholes. We are not.
No. We might be assholes, but we're not those assholes.
Yeah.
Just as a
so
baseline here.
on the tails of our conversation from the last show, where we were talking about Blizzard just being a bunch of dickholes, and they're ruling over a player who protested on stream during a Pan-Asia Hearthstone competition. Well, they've been getting ridiculed by not just, gamers worldwide and other organizations, but now the United States government has come in speaking out against them and showing favoritism towards the restriction of free speech on a platform. And Blizzard themselves have been releasing constant apologies, but also excuses as to why they stand by their decision. And
So let's be clear on something first, though, just so that people can understand what's really going on with that whole government intervention idea. Is that this is a letter that was sent and was drafted by AOC and Marco Rubio.
Which is the weirdest fucking combination I ever did hear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now other both Republicans and Democrats created a drafted bipartisan letter to Blizzard directly and sent it to the CEO, of which they basically said, "Hey, you need to undo that right now." Now, Blizzard, of course, did before this letter was sent and people were aware that this was something that happened. Blizzard had already rescinded most of the punishment. They had removed the full year ban to a 6-month ban, and they ungarnished his wages from the tournament and gave him back his winnings. They also made note that instead of simply firing the 2 casters, they also simply just temporarily banned those casters from doing additional shows for the next 6 months as well. So there was some backpedaling on that.
Can we take a second? Fuck you.
Yeah, the 2 people
What
who
did those guys do?
they were just casualties of war, and that's just no excuse.
That's still something that a lot of people are debating. As of right now, the baseline is that both of the casters didn't really do their job by steering where, according to the sources that everyone has said, they did not steer the conversation in a way that would allow for them to continue to keep the interview on the path of the game, and allowed Blitzchung to do what he did by simply being passive. Now, again, this is just what people are saying. This is what the sources have come out and saying. This is not my viewpoint. This is simply what other people have said based on the information that was received from not just the casters themselves, but also from Blizzard and a couple of other sources that are basically saying, okay, so this feeds into the whole concept of, yep, there's backpedaling, but also, yep, there's some excuses here. Exactly. Some folks kind of said that they egged him on to do it. The casters egged Blitzchung on to do what they were doing, which is why they were giggling and why they were ducking, because they realized, oops, we fucked up. He's actually going to do it. So this is something that is going to be difficult to really prove, because at this point, all we have are clips. We do not have the full interview because they pulled the whole VOD and deleted it. So it doesn't exist somewhere other than maybe if somebody saved the whole VOD and uploaded it somewhere else. Whether or not that's something we're going to get, probably don't know. The baseline is, though, since this has happened, other groups and entities, not just across Blizzard games, have all started to show solidarity. AU did something during the collegiate, they had a big collegiate tournament for Hearthstone a couple of weeks later, where they held up a sign that said, support Hong Kong, boycott Blizzard. And they got looked over. In fact, they actually got allowed to continue on in the tournament and denied their ability to do so by saying we quit, and said that if we're not held to the same standards that Blitzchung is, then we're not going to continue to play. Now, they did not, in fact, continue to play, and another week later were actually handed yet another 6-month ban, as they did for Blitzchung. Thus, they came out and said, cool, at least they're sticking to their guns and banning for 6 months instead of, not doing anything about it at all, because they shouldn't be. Again, what they said. There was a Mythic Championship for Magic the Gathering that happened over last weekend, and one of the players, who is a Hong Kong native, who played in top 8, also during his interview, I think it was right before he had finally just lost and he was on his way out, I think he was in like top 3 or top 4, had an interview and wore a mask. He came out, he played with an eye patch in solidarity, and stated that this is a travesty. Now, whether or not Wizards of the Coast is going to do anything about this is very difficult to say, because Wizards has different entities across the world in different markets, and they're a little bit different from, say, I don't know, Blizzard or other companies who are, who have Tencent or other companies from China with the hands in the honeypot, as so to speak. But the baseline is there is a lot of other people coming out from a lot of different games now, beyond just the general outrage of and influx of absolute ridiculousness of people saying, I'm uninstalling these games, cancel my accounts, I'm not playing Blizzard anymore until they fix their shit, and they're, not being, kowtowed to doing whatever it is that they're sucking at the teat of the Chinese government or, Tencent and all these other craziness. There's been hype for new League of Legends stuff from Riot, who is wholly owned by Tencent. And, they've got a new fighting game that they've announced. They've got a new card game that's coming out. They've got updates because it's the 10th year anniversary of League of Legends. They've announced a MOBA. They announced a first-person shooter that's character-based, kind of like Overwatch and Team Fortress, with the League of Legends twist, and an animated series. So they've come out with this massive amount of stuff that people are actually very excited for, but then you've got this whole group of people going, yeah, but they're owned by Tencent, who is part of the problem in the first place. Why would we want to help Riot? So a lot of this is really coming down to, what are we going to do? Do we not get to say our piece and free speech and this, that, and the other? Because all of a sudden now we have to tread on eggshells because we have, are people like, hey, I'm going to play this game, but they're doing so in secret. They're not telling people, they're not streaming it, or they're not telling the people that they would be afraid that they're streaming these specific games that are in some form or fashion, creating this weird divide amongst gamers because of Chinese censorship. And it's really weird to sort of see this strange kind of landscape just sort of appear. All of a sudden now we can't like games that we've enjoyed for years because of Chinese censorship. It's just this weird slap in the face because we like certain games now, or we like companies that make the games that we play. And so it's a very stark difference from what we had just a few weeks ago before a lot of this started happening in Hong Kong in the first place. Now, we've already talked about the Hong Kong riots, and we've talked about what's really going on down there in terms of why this is kind of a big topic for these people. But at the same time, there's also like a lot of crazy people who are basically trying to like rip these companies new assholes because they're bending to the will of this weird Chinese censorship that all of a sudden we've never really had to worry about before.
Now, one of the things I just find interesting is going back to Blizzard and their issued statement regarding the bans and saying that their platform is not one to be used for any kind of political speech or be used as a platform for anything in general. That's
Other than the game that you're playing.
Other than the game you're playing, yeah. Now, that's fine and well, and I can understand that. But when you've got streamers who do compete regularly in your game, and they are very, let's be honest, a lot of these people are sharing opinions about, this, that, and the other thing, including, the situation in Hong Kong, but you're going to make an example of somebody because he appeared on something that was like huge, like the championship stream right there. Something that was also probably broadcast locally in China. So making an example out of him, but letting the smaller fries, off. That's kind of like contradictory to like, how you do your business. I don't like that. If you're gonna have a standard, and kind of like what you were just saying about that one team who refused to play because they didn't think Blizzard was, gonna uphold their end of the agreement. I mean, but then Blizzard had to like have their hands forced in order for that to happen, which is kind of stupid. Because Blizzard should have, from the get-go, been issuing these bans to the competitive players who are, speaking out from the very beginning, not when it culminated at the peak of a championship or something like that. Sounds like you want to say something, Mark.
Well, it's are we talking about the Twitch thing?
Yeah.
Like, is that for me? It's like I think the reason why Twitch got involved in it specifically was just because it was on one of their branded channels. Like, we can talk about that, and there's no real expectation for that to be restricted.
No, not if you're on Twitch, that's fine. But I'm talking about like if you're a competitive person competing in one of Blizzard's leagues, you have to be aware that Blizzard is probably watching or monitoring some of their higher profile players, and some of these people are probably letting out, some kind of political rant or something as they play.
Okay. And here's my thing. I understand, like, we've had this conversation in private, but I understand the disdain for it, but I don't think there is anything wrong with any company choosing to police the speech that the people associated with them get to make.
No, that is perfectly fine. I get what you're trying to say, but what I'm
Right,
saying is...
I agree with you. I'm just like, let me finish. And, like, there are people who are making that argument that, freedom of speech. We had that discussion in private, and, I think I got my point across reasonably well. But for those out in the audience who, haven't had that conversation, here's the thing. We can't say it's unreasonable for a company to restrict the Hong Kong discussion because of freedom of speech, because eventually it comes to the question of, do you want these companies to allow white supremacists on their platform? And there are two answers you can give to that. The first answer is no. Well, actually, there's three answers you can give to it. The first answer is no. I don't want them to have white supremacists on there. Which, yeah, then you acknowledge immediately that free speech is not a thing that a company is going to allow for. The second thing that you can argue is, yes, they should be allowed to do that because I am a free speech absolutist, which, I mean, if that is your point of view, fine. I don't agree with you, and very few people would. The third option, of course, is to say yes because I am a white supremacist, which fall down a flight of stairs. I don't give a fuck what you think.
But the thing I'm actually also trying to say is because I agree with you in that regard. What I'm saying is in regards to the ruling and policing of Blizzard themselves. If you're
Right.
going to hold one person on a high-profile platform to, as an example, then you need to start policing and doing it to all the other people, no matter what level of what they are on Twitch or whatever streaming platform they use, as being Mixer or whatever.
So that becomes an issue of manpower and availability. So something
I
like
can
that
understand that.
becomes something like that becomes very difficult to do, especially in a platform like Twitch, where it's something maybe say like YouTube, where you have the ability to algorithm into specific types of things. All hail the mighty algorithm, right? You have the ability to understand that there's ways of being able to find this kind of content very quickly because it's catered, it's not live, it's something that can be policed. When it really comes down to live broadcasting through, say, something like Mixer or Twitch, or I think that's pretty much it. I guess DLive, but really nobody but PewDiePie goes there, and we already know what that's all about. The conceptual idea of being able to police live content becomes much more difficult because you have to be able to find people that are willing to actually show that what we're actually talking about is in the title of the content. If we're simply just going off and saying stuff without having some sort of absolutely just completely unconstitutional and completely illegal like tapping virus floating around in Twitch's systems, you're not gonna like people like us aren't gonna get shut down for talking about Chinese censorship. It's just not gonna happen. The likelihood of something like that going viral, maybe, I doubt it. We're not that popular. Most people aren't that popular. Most people aren't going to get dinged for it. But when it comes to the higher profile situations and Blizzard is actually in hand of part of the actual broadcast team, then yes, they should more than capably have the ability to police that kind of content. This is why, so for instance, with the AU incident during the collegiate tournament, as soon as they saw the sign, which was up for a solid 3 or 4 seconds on the stream, because they had the teams both on webcams for the fight, because it wasn't local, it was an internet tournament. Because it's college, right? You're not going to be able to take a weekend off of college to just go to these tournaments. The team held up the sign on their webcam for a solid 3 or 4 seconds before they cut from the whole of the game directly to the two broadcasters, who, by the way, had this odd grimace on their face, like, please don't fire me, I'm just doing my job. And then at that point, within maybe not even half an hour, because that was not even the end of the tournament, that was like in the beginning of the tournament series, they actually like straight up put out a press junket basically saying that they were not going to be doing any interviews for the collegiate series. There was no interviews that were going to take place of any winners from that tournament. They just straight up shut that down. So that there was them basically trying to do what they could to damage control, knowing what had happened. And then, of course, we already sort of know exactly how that ended up. Mm-hmm. But like the concept of being able to police live content becomes much more difficult without some form of standards and practices in place, where they force delay, they have automated moderation for specific content, and have they would basically have to have some form of FCC in place for internet content, which we don't technically have when it comes to this kind of content. It just doesn't really exist in the form that we would know it for, say, broadcast terrestrial television or satellite television, because that goes through a feed and then is processed and sent out to the public. Twitch and streaming media through, whatever streaming platform of your choice doesn't exist yet. Or if it does, it's not in the same facet that we expect it to be, and therefore is based on what the broadcaster actually provides to the people, which is a big reason why, in short part, that content on Twitch and other, YouTube and things like that have become as popular as they are, because they're not as policed as broadcast television and not as policed as network broadcast content as we've consumed it over the past couple of decades has been. So you really boil down to there's a technology that could be created for it, but do we really think that we want that? Probably not, because what does that really lead to? Then we've got that whole Big Brother argument of everyone's always watching me when I'm doing things, even if I don't want them to, kind of nonsense. Like, your NSA agent or your FBI agent at your computer watching you on your webcam is doing stuff. So, like, I know that's a meme at this point, but that's really where a lot of this is kind of aiming at. Is just like, this is what people are afraid of is actually what's starting to happen. The concept of the Red Dawn, which is a real thing that a lot of people have always been afraid of, is a concept of that. Eventually, you get to the point where a dictatorship or a communist nation rolls in to stymie freedom in a bloodbath. I don't feel like that's ever really been true. Like, I don't think that Red Dawn as a baseline through bloodshed is ever really going to have ever been a thing. It's actually going to happen through purchase and complacency. People are going to just allow that sort of censorship to sort of wean its way in because of the people that are in power are not doing their job as they should be as we know it. And that is what causes and creates the actual issues that we see now over the last month, only just on a much grander scale.
And I mean, the thing is even beyond all of that, you also have to look at the sheer amount of labor that is involved in trying to enforce that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't see as a long-term thing expression of my political opinion as being a bannable offense from Blizzard on the whole. And if they are doing that sort of thing to people in their private time, that's quickly going to become untenable.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you are essentially saying is none of the people who participate in our endeavors can ever express themselves politically in a public scenario
Mm-hmm.
because we say so. And like that ain't it, Chief. We're talking about how many, well, less now, obviously, but how many people play Hearthstone competitively? Hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people stream that? Like tens of thousands. You literally would not be able to monitor all of those different live streams. You would not be able to monitor all of those different social media accounts on a consistent basis. It would just be tiresome.
Mm-hmm.
It would be incredibly fucking expensive. And like I just don't see it being in the long term a desirable thing for any company to do. Even like the thing is going to inevitably come down to, because we all know why this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the Chinese government sucks to the point where if you say anything bad about whatever he is, president, prime minister, etc., Xi Jinping, like you're just fucking banned from the country. If I start in this context right now singing the goddamn Winnie the Pooh theme song, I'm gonna be banned from fucking China if he ever sees it.
Hey, Mark.
Like that's the stupidest.
Mark.
What?
PewDiePie got banned from China.
No,
That doesn't mean
PewDiePie should have been fucking banned from China.
I mean, yeah, true, but that really doesn't mean much. Let's be honest.
Right, but it's like their president is embarrassingly reactionary, and
almost Kim Jong-il like bad in terms of reactionary. Except Kim Jong-il, or except
well, Kim Jong-il was enemies with everybody except China, oddly enough. But yeah, like Kim Jong-il is worse.
He has
Is
nukes
noticeably
ready to go.
worse.
He has temper tantrums.
Whether or not he has nuclear weapons, because like that's irrelevant. It's just Kim Jong-il is like that whole fucking political group is insularly crazy. The Chinese government is a couple of degrees removed from North Korea, but they do practice in similar circles. Repression of information to the population. Expectation that the people behave in a certain way and do certain things a certain way. You know, a reactionary leader who does get very offended. They're not as bad because, you know, they allow in American movies and shit, but they also have such a huge economy that they get to swing their metaphorical governmental cock around, and companies are going to fucking cater to their whims. You know, so we get into situations where the Chinese government is like, well, we want X, and we see companies like, you know, Marvel Comics or you know, Disney, more or less, saying, okay, we are going to include stuff into these films that, even if it is progressive by American standards, is in such an incredibly tiny ass amount that we can erase it from the fucking Chinese cut so they don't have to see it or deal with it or consider it. You know, LGBT relationships in any capacity whatsoever for worldwide screened films are generally going to be put in incredibly minimal amounts in bite-sized pieces that are not really relevant to the story being told, so that when they go to market them to the Chinese audience, they can be erased. It's just how they fucking do shit now.
Yep.
And that's going to be the thing, is companies are going to deal with this until they aren't. And they aren't going to deal with it if the Chinese government makes it too onerous to deal with. If, like, Blizzard is not going to ban every single person who says, you know, Hong Kong riots, you know, like free Hong Kong. They are probably going to ban every single person who does it in a setting that is public to Blizzard directly. So if they do it at a Hearthstone event, if they do it at an Overwatch event, if they do it at something where Blizzard as a company is directly attached to it, yes, they're probably going to get banned from participating.
Oh, yeah,
but
for sure.
if like Ammunition went out and said, you know, solidarity for Blitzchung, solidarity for Hong Kong on her private Twitch channel or on her public Twitch channel, but, you know, on her personal Twitch channel, I don't see Blizzard doing anything about it. Now they may, but if they do at that point, that's showing your fucking cards, right? That's saying,
at that point,
we don't care about political speech. We only care if you say shit about Hong Kong.
Right. And at that point, it's more of a matter of the only thing that they could really do is just ask her to remove the VODs from that specific episode or that specific stream.
Right.
They're not really going to be able to just like say, you can't say it or we'll fine you. Like, for what? You don't pay my bills. You don't pay my sub. You know, you're not, I don't work for you. I work for me. I just play your games. Yeah. So it's like that there's, again, we're back to that whole idea of how can you police that kind of content, and the after giving basically the long answer, the short answer is you can't. It's really rough to try to do something on live, in a live broadcast. It's just not feasible to do something like that normally.
Yeah, and I mean, Twitch is absolutely not going to enforce that shit. Like, they will probably say something along the lines of, you know, please don't involve politics in any Twitch mandated channel. But, like, I think to Twitch's credit,
channel, do your thing. But if it's like, if we have a hand in the broadcast, please keep it to just what the broadcast is about.
Right? Like, to Twitch's credit, to the extent that we want to give them any credit for anything at all, you know, you know, they're still annoying and dumb. But to Twitch's credit, I'm positive that if somebody said something pro or anti U.S. government, they would probably do the same thing. Like, for them, it's probably a unilateral case of, we don't want you expressing your fucking political opinions in our event. And it's very possible that Blizzard might have done the same thing. Like, if somebody had shown up in a, you know, like a Trump hat or in a MAGA 2020 hat, that they might have said, take that shit off or we're not having you in here. or if they put the fucking thing on in the middle of an interview during the show, that they might have pulled the VOD and like suspended that person.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's just very telling that the only time that this has been enforced is with the Hong Kong situation.
Right. And again, it really just it really just harkens back to the whole idea that there's, obviously because of the way Tencent has their hands in a lot of the dealings with these companies, that they're basically saying, "Ooh, don't do it." And then they've got to do something about it, because then they're like, well, you lose a lot of money and you can't be in China anymore. And that's a big population that plays their games because it's China. That's just how it's got to be. This is a big reason why they banned Winnie the Pooh cosplay at BlizzCon in a couple of weeks. Like, that's a thing they had to do, because that's a thing that happens, because Xi Jinping has a lot of correlations throughout most of the world that he basically looks like Winnie the Pooh, and he hates it. So much so that you can't sing the theme song in relation or correlation to him. And
Cubby, little cubby, all stuffed with fluffies. Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh, willy-nilly, silly old bear.
The other part of it is that like they just don't want the correlation, so they pretty much are just like, well, don't do it.
Mark, I got some bad
you can't do
news.
it, so.
We just got banned from China.
Oh well, good, because I was never going there.
Planning on going there anyway.
Yeah.
I have no reason to go to Beijing for anything ever.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's time we wrap up the conversation here. Any final words, Mark?
The Chinese people are good. I like China as a country. Fuck Xi Jinping. A friend of mine got me a copy of what's the name of that game? The one that got banned from Steam, Devotion. I'm gonna have to stream that at some point.
Oh, good call.
Okay. All right, Jan, final words? Thoughts?
Things that happen to people can be good or bad depending on the situation. However, in certain circumstances, there are always going to be people who like to take their power and put it into a position of the ruling class. That's just how it's been throughout most of history. If you got power, you wield it as supremely and as executively as you possibly can, and not because some watery tart threw a sword at you. The long and short is, China as a country is probably a good, they're probably a thing. They exist. They're not bad. It's just inherently that there are certain people who are in a position of power that are wielding it in such a way that it is kind of basically like a giant dick measuring contest, and it's kind of gross, and I don't like it. And yeah, I mean, you stand in solidarity with the people that you know that are being hurt as best as possible, and fuck Xi Jinping.
Okay. Well, that's it for today's show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And Jan, what do you got going on again? Just to rehash the beginning of the show.
Pretty much, we've decided that Mondays and Wednesdays are going to be my normal stream days, plus my Tuesdays with you guys, either with the podcast or GVN Plays. I'm currently working, just started my playthrough of Fire Emblem Three Houses. We're going to be working on that for a couple of weeks, and then I've got some other side games that I might be working on as well, just sort of like break up the monotony and stuff like that. Probably mostly just sticking to MSQ stuff in the actual gameplay on stream, and a lot of my like side quest and like maintenance-y things I'll probably do off stream, just to sort of balance out with the amount of time I'm actually playing it.
Okay. And how about you, Mark?
Well, streaming on Friday and Saturday. Friday, probably gonna try and stream Moons of Madness. Saturday, board games.
Okay.
And again, on Halloween, radio play comes out that I was involved in. So I will link it on my Twitter. Look forward to it.
Okay.
Super excited for that.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. And for me, of course, every Tuesday it's GVN related. Next week will be GVN Live Plays. Most likely we're going to be playing Destiny 2, but that could change. Who knows? But it's probably going to be Destiny 2. Monday is always going to be Monster Hunter Monday, and I'm not sure if I'm going to stream regularly on Sundays or Thursdays. I need to really knuckle down a third day since I don't stream anymore on Wednesdays. And with that, I am going to go ahead and raid a friend, Risa Havoc. So on behalf of GVN, ladies and gentlemen, have a nice day.
Deuces.
There we go.